Welcome to Adeptus On-Air, the show where we examine how individuals and companies make decisions that drive their business and personal success. Each week, we connect with notable professionals who pull back the curtain on the industries that Adeptus has been on the cutting edge of for the last 30 years, including music, sports, and entertainment, as well as new emerging markets.
Welcome to another edition of Adeptus On-Air. I'm your host, Mike Hoffman. Very excited today to be joined by the guitarist of the Smithereens, Jim Babjak. Jim, thanks so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Hi.
It's I love talking to people in the entertainment field. I love talking to musicians, and I really like talking to people that are in bands, because I think the journey to how the band kind of came to play is just so interesting, you know, from the creation to today. So can you kind of walk us through the process of how the Smithereens became the Smithereens?
Oh my God. This is your life?
Exactly. Well, no one wants to hear about my life, so let's talk about yours.
All right. Well, I'm 65 now. So let's see. In 1971, I started high school. And the first day of high school, the first class, it was earth science. There was a kid sitting behind me who looked at he noticed my notebook where I had a picture of The Who on it from a magazine.
Mm-hmm.
So he approached me after the class. His name is Dennis Dyken, our drummer, future drummer. And he said, you wouldn't happen to play guitar, would you? And I said, yes, I do. So it all started there in September of 1971. So we started playing, and then our bass player, Mike, joined in 1975. And then we met Pat, our lead singer, or late lead singer, who passed away 4 years ago through an ad in the paper. So we had been playing for many, many years before we even met Pat. We kind of had a sound already, and we were looking for a lead singer. We went through a couple in the 70s that just didn't work out. But, this one clicked. But it took another 6 years after that to get a record deal. So I was on the verge of quitting, and my dad owned a tavern. So my destiny was to become a business owner. Mm-hmm. And you'll see in my yearbook, too, it says, we'll have a future in music or business. And it turns out to be both, because it's the music business.
Yeah, that's right.
So, it was disappointing for my dad, I think, that I didn't stay in that. And I actually talked them to moving into Arizona, or I was going to move, but then the band had just started with Pat. And I felt like something was going to happen, but it took 6 years of playing clubs for $25 a night.
Right.
And this and that. And in the meantime, I was doing well with the bar business, and I owned a brand new Trans Am back in 1977. And in 1979, it was stolen in New York because I couldn't afford the $5 to park the car in the village at that time. And I used that insurance money to open up a record store in 1980. And then in 1983, I turned it into a video record store, because video cassettes were new at the time. And so that's how I made my living, doing that and the band. And then we got signed to a record deal. And then all of a sudden it was overnight success after 6 years. And then we started touring. We signed with an agency, and we were on the road with ZZ Top, the Ramones. We Squeeze, UB40, a whole bunch of bands. The Pretenders. We played at Radio City with the Pretenders 3 nights and Lou Reed 2 nights. So it was a whirlwind. So I had to sell the business, and then
well, you were living your dream at that point.
Yeah, things changed.
Yeah. So how did the name Smithereens come about?
It's from the Yosemite Sam cartoons. I'll blow you varmints to smithereens.
Oh.
Our drummer Dennis came up with that, and we were surprised that nobody had that name before, because it sounded like it should be a name for a band. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
It sounds like one of those like 50 Motown groups, like the Supremes and like all that kind of group. Someone, when you hear about that, but it's amazing that you stuck with it all those times, because I'm sure there were, like you said, moments where you're like, you know what, the dream is just that. It's just a dream. It's never going to happen.
Oh, there were ups and downs.
Yeah.
When grunge came in, all of a sudden we were out of fashion. We lost our
Mhm.
record deal, but we stuck to our guns and kept going, and then kept recording albums and kept touring, and now we're still selling out venues. And Tom Petty asked us to tour with him in 2013,
Mhm.
and that was a big thrill, playing hockey arenas again, and
Yeah.
big venues. And so we're still playing and we're still recording,
Mhm.
and we're still active. And I, on the side, I have a coffee business
Oh, nice.
called Babjak's Coffee. I
Mhm.
have a friend who's a roaster, and I've been selling that online. And Howard from Adeptus takes care
Mhm.
of all that too.
So, yeah. See, it's
Uh,
good. So the one thing just spurned off into the next thing, into the next thing. Yeah.
yeah.
Now, you guys, do you write your own music, or is it a
Oh yeah.
collaborative process among all of you, or is it just yourself?
No, it's collaborative. I'll usually come in with the idea and the main hook and the
Mhm.
music, and then and the other guys help with the lyrics and their parts. So yeah,
So
we
you,
share. Yeah.
yeah. So you hear a lot when you like watch these, like your life stories of some of these musicians, where they'll be like, I'm sleeping and I wake up in the middle of the night and I gotta quickly find a piece of paper because I dreamt a line, or I dreamt a. What's your process when you said you kind of come in with the hook? How are you creating that hook? Is it just coming to you, or are you sitting in a dark room and how do these hooks come to you?
Well, before iPhones, because now
Mm-hmm.
I'll just sing it into my phone or pick up my guitar and play it into the phone, and there's
Yeah.
hundreds hundreds of ideas there, and it's good to
Mm-hmm.
have. Years ago, I thought, before all the technology, I thought, oh, if I can't remember it, then it's not worth it. But that's
Mm-hmm.
not true. I used to keep a pad, just pad and paper.
Yeah.
Pad and pen.
Yeah.
As simple as that, you know. Uh, but the melody, though, that's tough because I don't read music, so there's no way for me
Mm-hmm.
to write down the notes. So I'd have to remember it and get to a phone
Some kind of recording. Yeah.
yeah, or just play it over and over again on my guitar till it's embedded in my brain.
Yeah. So you don't read music. So everything from you is just the sound of your ability to play a guitar off of a tune in your head.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. And I was a quote unquote musician for my high school days, and that was a skill I never had. I mean, I was able to read sheet music, I was able to play what was in front of me, but I was never able to hear something and on my own play it.
Well, I started with lessons,
Mhm.
when I was, I guess, in eighth grade, and
Mhm.
I didn't like it because I didn't
Yeah.
want to play Mary Had a Little Lamb, and I didn't want to
Yeah.
read notes. I told the
Sure.
teacher I want to play the songs by the Beatles, and he says, "Oh, you can't. It's too early. You can't do that."
Right. Right.
So, I had a record player. I put the needle on, and I did it over and over again until I figured out what they were doing.
Wow.
And then I was trying to write my own songs, and my dad comes into my room. He says, "What are you trying to do?" And I said, "Well, I'm working on a song." And he says,
Mhm.
"Well, son, you have to walk before you can run." And I said, "No, I'm going to run. I'm not walking."
Yeah.
So that and
But most
you know,
people would
yeah.
have to walk first. You had a skill and a inherent gift that most people don't have.
I was probably terrible, but
Well,
I tried really hard just to, do what I want to do, and I didn't want to necessarily play other people's music.
yeah.
I knew early on that I wanted to write songs.
Mhm. So the songs that you write, are they coming from life experiences? What's the big thing you hear now? Taylor Swift, every song's about a breakup or a guy. So like, what what's the impetus? And obviously every song's different, but is it coming from something in your life, or is it just a random thing from left field?
It's everything. I mean, some of
Mhm.
it is personal, but even with that, it changes because it's not gonna flow the right way. So you have to
Yeah.
embellish a little bit. Like, for
Yeah.
instance, I had an argument with my late wife one time, and by the way, she passed away in 2016,
Mhm.
and I have a memorial. I'll get to that later, but I have a memorial fund scholarship for her at
Oh,
Rutgers, and
yeah, I'll
Adeptus is
definitely give you an
also,
opportunity to talk about that for sure.
yeah, they're helping me with that. So
That's great.
I had an argument with my late wife, and in my head I thought, or I said, I guess I'm wrong again this time, you know. And it was just that one line that
Yeah.
turned into a song called "Point of No Return," and it's just made up. It's fabricated, but
Hmm.
the one line came from a real life experience. And then
Right,
there
right.
was riots going on in the early '90s in LA, and I wrote a song called "Love Is Gone" after that, and but then relationship songs are good. They're
Hmm.
mostly made up.
It's funny because when you think about songs, you don't you don't know if they're true or not, but it doesn't matter. If you like the song and it's a catchy song, I think back to all these country songs. And the one thing about country music, and I am not by any stretch a big country music fan, but they seem to tell stories more so than a
Yeah,
lot of other songs, And I'm sure 90% of it's fabricated, but who cares if it's a good tune and it's catchy words, it's a great song.
right, right. And I saw John Lennon interviewed one time, and he said to the guy said, "Well, this really speaks to me, and what's this song about?" And he said, "It's about whatever you want it to be about." And he said, "They're just words that sound good together." That's what Lennon said. And then he came up with a lot of gibberish lyrics too, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and that's another thing. I saw a thing with David Bowie once where he took fragments of some words and sentences, fragments, put them in a hat, pulled them out, and then made a song out of it. So there's so many different ways to write a song. And so I use current events sometimes, relationships, um, stuff like that.
Did you ever think you had a good melody in your head, whether you woke up thinking of something and you realized 2 days later, wait a minute, I heard that on the radio? So it was, you kind of thought of it, but you thought of it, but you realized, wait a minute, that was something I heard as you're playing it a little more.
Yeah, it hasn't happened yet, but there are times where I think this is really great. Somebody must have done this before.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
So it is kind of scary. So I'll ask our drummer and I'll ask around, does this sound familiar to you? And if they say
Mhm.
no, then I'm good.
So it's now, 30 years later, you guys are still going strong. And so what kind of venues are you touring in now? I know you played this weekend pretty close to here.
Yeah, clubs and theaters. And in the summer, usually outdoor festivals.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm. Nice.
yeah, basically it.
What is your guys' plan for the next 2, 3 years? Are you looking to release new albums, continue touring, hook on with as you said, like a Tom Petty bigger headliner? What would be a dream scenario for you guys over the next couple of years?
Well, all of the above, because we've always been steady, working steady,
Hmm.
constantly. It's not like a planned tour or anything. We play every month somewhere, a few times a month,
Hmm.
and yeah, I'm in the middle of writing new songs, and also have a lot of archival material that we're releasing.
Yeah. What's your favorite aspect of it? I mean, looking back over the 30 years, has it been the the traveling? Has it been the actual performing? Has it been the process of writing the music? Like, what was your favorite part of this entire thing?
I love all of it. I really do. I love the balance of being home and
Hmm.
and traveling, because when I travel, I'll go and be a tourist.
Sure.
Like when we were in Paris, I went to the Eiffel Tower. Let's see, in the '90s, I was there when the Berlin Wall came down. So I went
Wow.
there and I chiseled off a piece of that and I have it on my bookshelf. What was it recently? Recently, I was in the March issue of the United Airlines Hemispheres magazine as Know Your Traveler. And they interviewed me for that and asked me about my favorite places to travel and all that. So, and performing, of course, you know, the boring part is waiting to go on.
Yeah.
You know, just being backstage. People think it's a big party, but I'm usually napping or, you know, taking a walk, you know, or.
You still get those butterflies in your stomach before you hit the stage?
Sometimes, not always. Yeah, I don't really think about it.
Can you think of one performance over your life where you were just really, really nervous to go on, whether it was because you knew there were some people in attendance or something like that that really made you, you know, on edge?
I guess in the beginning, you know, at Radio City Music Hall, because my, you know, all my friends and relatives were there, and you know, when we were playing with Tom Petty, I noticed from the corner of my eye that they were watching from the side of the stage. So I'm like, but then I don't know, I just tune it out. I tune it all out, and I'm in a zone. Sometimes I close my eyes and I listen to the band when I'm playing, you know, because I like to hear the band also. Kind of a weird thing to say, but you know,
you're a fan of the band.
I am, and I'm feeding off what our drummer's doing and what our bass player's doing, and yeah, so I feed off that.
So back in the day, I guess, you know, when you were first starting to tour, was it really going to like a small venue to a small venue to a small venue just to kind of build your following? And I'm thinking back in my head to a movie, that Tom Hanks movie, That Thing You Do.
Great
So
movie.
is that a obviously it was a little different for you. I'm sure you weren't doing like, you know, fairs and all that kind of stuff, but is that an accurate depiction kind of that life?
Yes and no. Yes, you know, we started out slow, of course, and we did do a lot of those state fairs.
Yeah.
We actually played at that one where they
Really?
filmed it. We we played there
wow.
with Blondie a couple of years ago, and I remember during sound check looking at it, going, "This looks familiar." And then it's like, and then it dawned on me, this is where they filmed all that stuff.
That's
It was at
funny.
the Orange County State Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it's, you know, we started out slow, like I said, and then all of a sudden, when we first got signed to an agency and our first album was coming out, they were the biggest agency. It was called Premiere, and they had Bruce Springsteen, they had the Who, they had U2, the Ramones, Tom Petty, everybody. And they threw us out to the Lions to test us out. Our first gig was opening for ZZ Top at an arena in West Virginia. And at the time, nobody really heard of us. So the audience was throwing things at us, like food. And
Yeah.
I remember seeing shoes, and I remember seeing a salad dressing bottle, you know, all kinds of crazy stuff. They were just booing us. But we stayed, did our entire show, half-hour show, and we stuck to it, and we had to prove ourselves. So that was how we started, by people throwing stuff at us.
But you know,
And then of course the radio and MTV started playing our stuff in heavy rotation. And then the next time we went back to West Virginia, I met a few of the fans that said boy, I'm really sorry about the treatment you got from the people here, because they heard about it and they said it wasn't us, but we love you guys.
well, I guess that's the thing. I guess from becoming the opening act to, I guess, becoming the headliner, you know, there's those growing pains. You know, I was literally just last weekend talking to my kids about this because my daughter actually saw recently down in Asbury Demi Lovato, and we are talking about how, wow, it's a venue change from when I saw her 10 years ago when she was at the Prudential Center. So we were
Who's
talking
that?
about Demi Lovato.
Oh,
And she was in Asbury at the Stone Pony Outdoor Theater about, you know, very recently, last few days. And you talk about how careers progress, you know, up and down. And we were talking about how when I took my daughters to see, you know, Miley Cyrus 12, 13 years ago, their opening act was some small group called the Jonas Brothers that no one heard of.
yeah.
And then when the Jonas Brothers were touring, they were opened up by some new singer no one heard of named Taylor Swift. And when she toured, she was opened up by some guy named Ed Sheeran. So there's obviously this progression where you want to get on that tour and the possibilities of what it could lead to.
We roll with the punches. Yeah. It's up and down, and you just keep going. John Bon Jovi opened up for us back in 1980 or 81. Really?
Wow.
The Bachman Turner Overdrive opened up for us, and I even said in when we were at the height of our career, and I was talking to them saying, "Oh man, I feel really bad, but this is how the promoters are paying, and this is how they want it." And he said, "Don't worry about it because you'll be opening for my kids someday." So I'll never forget that quote. And then I did a radio interview with Joey Ramone one time on a station in Norfolk, Virginia. And they asked Joey how it feels to be the godfather of punk. And he said, this is back in 1986, he said, "That's all great that we influenced all these people, but they're making a lot more money than we ever did."
Yeah.
So I remembered that when Nirvana came out, because I had heard that we had influenced Nirvana, Kurt Cobain in particular, liked my guitar playing and sound. And the same thing happened, they became really big, and yet, and then it almost ruined our career, but we kept going.
Yeah.
You just got to roll with the punches in this business, just like in the movie business or whatever. Right. You're on top one day, and then the next day you're not. But what a
compliment to have Kurt Cobain say he learned a lot from you. I mean, that's the highest of compliments one can receive in the industry, I would imagine.
Yeah, and I wish I would have met him because I never did.
Yeah, that's a nice little nugget though to have in your head. So, being that this is an accounting podcast, can you just talk to us, as you mentioned before, you've worked with Howard here for a long time. Can you just talk about that relationship and how that has benefited you and the group over the years?
Well, we've been incorporated since the 80s, and there are taxes to be paid in every state that we play, and it's overwhelming, and union dues and just everything, and then all the expenses of traveling. So it's very important to have somebody that's on top of it and by the book, because you don't want to be, you don't want to make any mistakes with that. And I love Howard and the company. They've been great to me, very professional, by the book. Years ago, we had a different accounting firm, and we had a tour manager that was stealing from us. They had a credit card, and we caught the guy buying a laptop for himself and a bunch of other things. So, there's a woman, Joanne Manfield, that does our bookkeeping that scrutinizes every little bit. And so I'm really happy about that, because you got to keep it
right.
Yeah. And then also, my wife passed away from pancreatic cancer back in 2016. So I started a memorial fund, scholarship fund at Rutgers University, where she went, and two of my boys went. So Howard, helped me set that up, because I would have no idea how to set up a 501(c)(3).
Yeah, 501. Yeah, 501. Exactly. There you go. You see, there you go.
I'm a musician, but I have to use this part of the brain and this part of the brain.
That's right. Right.
And then I also started a coffee business, coffee roasting business, where I'm selling coffee online, and Howard helped me set that up too. So,
well, before we get off topic, let's talk a little bit about the memorial fund you set up, because I think that's important. So tell me a little bit about it and how people can check it out and things like that.
Well, it's for Rutgers University, and I gave them authority to choose the candidates for it, because I didn't have time, and I mean, they do show me who it is, and sometimes I'll get a letter of thanks.
Mhm.
But Rutgers, it's very special to me because not only did my wife go there and my two sons, I used to have a record store and video store there in New Brunswick
Mhm.
while my late wife was attending college there. So I knew a lot of the students. And the first time they ever played any of our records was on WRSU, the Rutgers campus
Oh,
radio
wow.
station. So yeah, it's really a special place in my heart. And originally I wanted the scholarships, every year, a different person. It
Mhm.
started out as $5,000 per student, but I had to drop that because I'll need to do some more fundraising. Right
Mhm.
now, it's only $500 because
Mhm.
I'm running out of money. But once I do some more fundraisers, we'll get them with the amounts up
If people want to contribute, how do they go about doing that?
through my website at jimbabjak.com. There is a link to donate to that
Awesome.
also.
Okay, good. Because I know it's
Um,
that's a worthwhhile cause. It's a wonderful memory, and a
yeah,
legacy for your wife for sure.
yeah, yeah.
So quick as we wrap this up, how many songs over the years have you think you've written?
uh, Geez, I think I have a notebook up there with a file, but it's definitely it's over 120,
Okay,
something like
top two
that.
or three favorites of yours of the songs you've written.
My Christmas song
Mhm.
called Christmas Morning, and a song called Now and Then, which was a breakthrough for me,
Mhm.
uh, and, and really good hook, and it just came out really well. And one of my first songs was called White Castle Blues,
Okay.
which I wrote right out of high school. And I got to mention this. The song was kind of a funny song, you
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
like Saturday night and it's getting late. I'm getting hungry. I just can't wait. But it's a rock song, and it ended up on our first album as a bonus cut, and it got a lot of college airplay. It was really popular in colleges.
Sure. As are White Castles.
Yeah, so we used to go there. I still
Mhm.
do. That's the only fast food I eat anymore, and it's only, it's rare, but I
Mhm.
do.
Yeah.
And I started noticing in the late 80s and 90s that mysteriously hundreds of burgers would start showing up at our shows that we would give out to people in the
Uh-huh.
audience. And it turned out they knew about it. The company knew about it,
Mhm.
the song, and so they're very supportive of the band. And I ended up, well, I wrote this song with a high school friend of mine. His name is Bob Banta. He's an accountant, by the way, or he
Mhm.
was. He's retired now. And we were inducted into the Cravers Hall of Fame uh, in 2002, I think, for writing the song White Castle Blues. So we're in the White Castle Hall of Fame. And they also made a huge donation to my wife's
Oh,
memorial
nice.
fund. I think it was like $20,000, if I remember
Wow.
correctly. So they've always been supportive. And sometimes they'll show up with like 500 cheeseburgers at a show and that we'll give out to the audience.
That's great.
So, I visit them in Columbus sometimes at the main headquarters just to
Mhm.
say hi and everything.
Yeah.
And it's a great family run business. And I believe they don't have any debt. I
Wow.
think I think they're one of those family run businesses that only open a new franchise, or it's not even franchise, they own them all.
Mhm.
But they own the property, they own the building, and they have no mortgage. It's just uh, you know,
Wow.
it's just perfect. So not only am I in the New Jersey Hall of Fame,
Right? Yes.
I'm in the
The
White
White
Castle
Castle
Hall
Hall
of
of
Fame.
Fame.
So we're waiting for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but I won't hold my breath on that one.
You're in the White Castle Hall of Fame. How many people in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame can say that? So you got something one up on all of them.
Well, Alice Cooper is in it.
Oh, okay.
Alice Cooper. I can't think of any other rockers at the moment, but I think we're the only two at the moment.
Yeah, we spent many a time after the Friday night football games I grew up in Edison at the one in Route 1, that White Castle right there. We spent many a time there, at 11 o'clock on a Friday night.
Is that by Menlo Park?
Correct. Yes.
I used to go to that one.
Yep. You go to that one. Our office in New Jersey right now, we have one right on 35 by the Monmouth Mall, like 3 miles up the street from us here. And then when I drive up Route 9, there's one right there too. So I know there's 3 in the general area of where I live. Once a year tops, because I think it takes me 11 months to get it out of my system. So nothing tastes better, but
it's probably about 3 or 4 times. A couple of weeks ago, it was about 10 o'clock at night, and I already had dinner at like 6.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? I had a craving for it, so I just got in my car, drove over to the one in Howell on Route 9.
Oh, I forgot about that one. Okay, sure.
And I wanted to try the new 1921 burger. So
What is that? What is that one?
It's like a smash burger. It's
Okay.
it's different. It doesn't have the holes in it.
Like,
But
I
it's
guess,
all good. It's all good. They put lettuce. I know what they did. They put
Oh.
lettuce and tomato on it. So,
okay.
but I'm going to go back to the old ones because I
Yeah.
like the old greasy cheeseburger.
So I gotta tell you, this is why I like doing these podcasts so much, because when I kind of had some talking points, us talking about White Castle hamburgers was not something on my list. So that's why I love how these things kind of take you in different directions. And
You
I
never
guarantee you now in the next 4 or 5 days, I will be at a White Castle, because now it's going to be in my head.
Yeah, but I get it. At my age too, I haven't had McDonald's in probably
No.
22 years.
Yeah.
Or any of that stuff. It's just, I'm eating healthy. I'm eating baby spinach in the morning, raw, and celery and salmon and fish, chicken. So red meat is a rare thing. I walk every day,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because I still have a lot to do.
You have a lot to do. You need the energy for, hopefully you get that call and you're touring, and that's a pretty exhaustive lifestyle. So you got to be in shape for it. So.
Right. And so our lead singer passed away, right? Like I said.
Yeah.
So right now we have 2 guest singers that we use on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
One is Robin Wilson, who fronts the Gin Blossoms.
Oh, wow, okay.
You might have heard them. They
Sure.
sold a couple million records.
Yep.
And Marshall Crenshaw, who's an old friend of ours, who has a solo career on his own too.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to fit it around their schedule.
Yeah.
And so it's working out great.
Good. Well, I'm definitely going to try and hit one of your shows over the summer if you're nearby. I would definitely love to see you guys and meet you in person. But I thank you so much for the time. I've really enjoyed this. I'm glad we worked out some of the technological kinks.
My pleasure.
Best of luck in the future with all this.
Thanks for listening to Adeptus On-Air. If you like this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. If you have a question related to this episode or have a request for what you would like to hear, please email us at marketing@adeptuscpas.com. You can also find us at adeptuscpas.com online or follow us at Adeptus on social media. The views and opinions by the podcast speakers and guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of Adeptus. This podcast provides general information only and is not intended to constitute advice.